Earlier this week, we discussed the economics of running a campaign, especially in regards to whom was raising the most money in Arizona's closely watched and very expensive U.S. Senate race. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about how expensive things have gotten for voters and how that will affect political campaigns. The Consumer Price Index came out yesterday, and it shows that the U.S. inflation rate is rising again after months of cooling. However, here in the swing state of Arizona, a state that could decide who controls the Senate and the White House, inflation slowed, and we now have a lower inflation rate than the country overall. Contrast that with the summer of 2022 when we way outpaced the country inflation-wise and had a 13% inflation rate. Since it was a Democratic consultant who famously said, "It's the economy, stupid," during Bill Clinton's successful presidential campaign, it's certainly worth a look at not only how the economy is doing, but how its perception will affect whether Democrat Joe Biden gets another 4 years at his White House address. Certainly things are looking good for Arizona's economy. Phoenix was just named the top market for manufacturing growth. And Greater Phoenix Economic Council President Chris Camacho says we continue to move through an industrial supercycle.
All indications are this region's going to continue to be a robust, innovation-centered growth market.
But will we forgive Biden for the bad times? NBC News political analyst Chuck Todd told Jamie and me this morning, when voters start to use the economy, when they do, to gauge who they'll vote for.
But voters perceive the economy to be when they go to the ballot box. It's usually about the first 4 or 5 months of the calendar year. What the economy is in, say, May or June, and what the perception of the economy is, right? This is like Biden's biggest trouble.
With inflation going back up, what does that do to Biden versus Trump? Well, Chuck lays out the explanation that Biden needs to give for inflation.
Inflation was an inevitable part of the bizarre COVID lockdown, the supply chain issue. History is going to write this. This was why we had inflation. There was no real other reason. It's because you had a bizarre supply chain.
I would argue against that this way. All that free COVID money put in voters' pockets by both Trump and Biden with nothing to spend it on played a huge part. But explaining it and blaming it on supply chain issues is a trick. And
the trick for Biden is going to be, do voters now start to process this inflation issue that way?
No, they don't. They just know that it costs them twice as much to buy some items and 4 times as much in interest to get a mortgage, so they can't buy a house. And with inflation going back up, guess what? The Federal Reserve is not going to lower interest rates. And most importantly, Americans aren't going to go out between now and when they decide who they're going to vote for and get an economics degree, even if Biden tells them that'll be free later on.
Thanks for watching Sharper Point. Click to see more from Arizona's Morning News and tap the button in the middle to subscribe.